The bottle of Glenfiddich 18 sat on my kitchen counter like a gold-lit promise, amber depths catching the lamplight. A birthday gift from Mark, my son, who'd handed it over with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Don't choke on it, Dad," he'd whispered, a strange addendum as he clapped my shoulder. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. That was at 7:15 p.m. Now it was 9:42 p.m., and my phone screen illuminated with a text from Liam, my 16-year-old grandson. "Grandpa, don't drink it." 3 words that landed in my chest with the weight of certainty. I felt no surprise, only confirmation of something my subconscious had already catalogued. The peculiar emphasis on choke. Mark's careful insistence that I open it tonight, alone, to celebrate properly. I didn't call Mark. Didn't send panicked texts. At 74, I've learned that emergencies require methodology, not drama. I walked to my office, removed the tamper-evident tape from the second drawer, and retrieved my chain of custody notebook, a habit from 40 years of engineering projects where even a millimeter's deviation could collapse a bridge. Back in the kitchen, I studied the bottle. The seal appeared intact, but appearances make poor evidence. I set my phone on its stand, opened the camera app, and tapped Video. Edward Wallace, October 19, 2025, 9:47 p.m. Documentation of potential contamination of birthday gift. Glenfiddich 18, single malt. My voice was steady, clinical. Bottle received from Mark Wallace at approximately 7:15 on 15 p.m. Warning received from Liam Wallace via text at 9:42 p.m. I rotated the bottle slowly before the camera, noting the condition of the seal, the fill level, the clarity of the liquid. Then I took 6 still photographs from different angles, ensuring the timestamp function was active. This is how problems get solved. Not with confrontation, but with documentation. Not with accusations, but with evidence. The engineer's way. I placed the bottle in a clear evidence bag, sealed it with tamper-evident tape, and logged each step in my notebook, including exact times and observations. My handwriting, neat, block letters, a habit from decades of filling out inspection forms, made a satisfying scratch against the paper. Danger often comes wrapped as a gift, counting on gratitude to lower your guard. Mark should have remembered that I taught him to examine every unexpected offering, whether it came from a client or family. Perhaps he thought age had softened my vigilance. I sent a brief text to Liam. Received your message. Bottle secured. Do not discuss with your father. Call me when you can speak privately. Then I photographed our text exchange and added it to my documentation. Some might call this paranoia. I call it process. Clean lines, right angles, measurements you can verify. That's how you build something that lasts. That's how you keep people safe when they cross your bridge. The bottle remained sealed in its evidence bag on the counter. I would not be rushed into testing, into confrontation without preparation. First, preserve. Then, analyze. Finally, act with precision. I added a final note in my log. No consumption of contents. Bottle preserved for testing. Then I photographed the note, the bagged bottle, and the log itself. My son had given me something more valuable than whiskey. He'd given me clarity. A problem to solve before it broke someone. Perhaps he intended it to break me. At 10:23 p.m., I closed my notebook and placed it in my fireproof safe, along with backup copies of the photos and video I'd taken. The digital originals were already uploading to my secure cloud storage. I did not drink. I did not call. I did not rage or weep or wonder why. Paper beats promises. Evidence beats emotion. This is how I've lived my life. How I've built structures that withstand earthquakes and floods, and the slow erosion of time. We solve problems before they break. And my son had just become a problem. The phone rang at 10:47 p.m. Liam's name illuminated my screen exactly as I'd expected. I activated the call recorder application, then answered on speaker. Pen poised above a fresh page in my notebook. "Grandpa." His voice wavered in that uniquely adolescent way. Half child, half man, all vulnerability beneath attempted stoicism. 16 years old, all elbows and heart, as Claire, my sister, liked to say. "I'm here, Liam. I'm alone, and this call is being recorded for your protection and mine. Are you somewhere private?" A rustling sound, then, "Yeah, bathroom, door locked. Dad's downstairs watching something loud." "Good. Tell me exactly what you saw, with as much detail as you can remember." My voice remained level, a trellis for his words to climb. "It was yesterday afternoon, around 4. Dad thought I was at debate practice, but it got cancelled. I came home through the side gate." Liam paused, his breath shallow. "The garage door was up a few inches. I was going to go in that way, but I heard Dad talking to himself. I made notes, precise timestamps and observations." "Go on." "He had your whiskey bottle on his workbench. The seal was off. There was this little glass vial, like the kind they use for samples at the doctor's, clear liquid. He was using one of Mom's cooking droppers to transfer it into the bottle." "How many drops did you observe?" 6, maybe 7. He was saying something like, "Special reserve just for Dad." Then he laughed. "But it wasn't." Liam's voice cracked slightly. "It wasn't a normal laugh." "What did you do next?" "I backed away. Went around front. Made noise coming in. Later, I saw the bottle back in its gift bag on the counter. The seal looked back on." He paused. "I should have told you right away, but Dad drove me to school this morning, then had that whole dinner thing tonight. And I couldn't—" "You told me in time, Liam. That's what matters." I kept my voice steady, though my heart ached for what this boy was navigating. "Now I need you to do 3 things for me. Are you able to write something down?" "I can use notes on my phone." "Good. First, write down exactly what you just told me. Time, date, what you saw. Sign it with your name and today's date. Second, take a screenshot of the text you sent me warning about the bottle. Third, email both to yourself and to me." I heard the tap of his fingers on the screen, punctuated by uneven breathing. "Liam, I want you to understand something important. You did exactly right. You saw something dangerous, and you spoke up. That took courage." "Dad's going to know it was me," he whispered. "This stays between us for now. I give you my word. Your safety comes first." No confrontation will happen without proper precautions. No one gets to retaliate against a truth-teller in my family. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you going to call the police?" A fair question. I considered my response carefully. "I'm going to collect evidence first. Verify what's in that bottle. Create a documented timeline. Then I'll determine appropriate next steps based on facts, not speculation." "What do you think he put in it?" "Based on your description, likely a benzodiazepine or similar sedative. The comment about choking suggests he wanted to impair my reflexes or consciousness." I kept my tone matter-of-fact, as if discussing a bridge support's load capacity. Drama helps no one in crisis. "Sent the email," Liam said. "Good. I'm going to verify receipt. Then we'll end this call. I want you to act normally around your father. Don't confront him. Don't hint at what you know. Can you do that?" "Yes. If at any point you feel unsafe, call me immediately. Day or night." I heard him swallow. Okay, what happens now? Now I implement a procedure, evidence collection, analysis, protected disclosure, a proper engineering solution. I paused, then added the line I wanted him to remember. We are not here to test hearts, Liam. We are here to test choices. Your father has made his. Now, we observe the consequences. After ending the call, I logged the conversation details in my notebook, printed the email from Liam with his statement and screenshot, and filed everything in duplicate. One copy for the safe, one for tomorrow's steps. Some problems require daylight and witnesses. Some require paper that cannot be denied. This one would require both. I woke at 5:47 a.m., 17 minutes before my alarm. Sleep had come in measured increments, like a properly formulated concrete pour, just enough to set, not so much that I'd miss the morning light. Daylight would be my ally today. By 6:30, I had showered, dressed, and organized my evidence kit on the kitchen table. My chain of custody notebook, tamper-evident bags, adhesive labels, a digital camera with timestamp function, portable printer, and 3 empty folders labeled Original, Copy 1 and Copy 2. The sealed whiskey bottle sat at the center, amber liquid catching the morning sun, beautiful and suspect. At 8:02 a.m., I entered Hargrove's Liquor on Main Street. The bell above the door announced me with unnecessary drama. "Morning, Edward," said Jim, wiping down the counter. "Bit early for spirits, isn't it?" "Research purposes," I replied, walking directly to the Scotch section. There it was, Glenfiddich 18, identical to Mark's gift. I checked the price tag, $129.99. Purchased with cash, receipt carefully placed in an envelope marked Control Sample Acquisition. Back home, I photographed both bottles side by side, noting batch numbers and visible characteristics. Then I called Ms. Patel. Lakshmi Patel had been my pharmacist for 11 years, but more importantly, she had previously worked for Northeastern Regional Laboratory. Her retirement hobby was maintaining a small testing facility in her converted garage, properly certified, meticulously clean. I had consulted on the ventilation system design 2 summers ago. 10:30 works perfectly, she said, after I explained the situation in precise terms. Bring both bottles. At 10:22, I parked in her driveway. Ms. Patel met me at the door in a lab coat, hair netted, gloves already on. No questions about family drama, no sympathetic head tilts, just competence personified. This is why we got along. "Camera is on," she announced, gesturing to the security system in the corner. "State your name and purpose." "Edward Wallace, requesting comparative analysis of potentially contaminated alcohol against control sample." Her lab was a testament to order. Stainless steel workbench, calibrated pipettes, labeled containers, documentation forms in triplicate. "We'll take 4 samples," she explained, laying out sterile vials. A1 and A2 from the suspect bottle, C1 and C2 from the control, each with separate pipettes, documented sequentially. I watched her work with surgeon-like precision, noting every step in my log. Each vial received a coded label, date, time, and both our initials. Ms. Patel prepared chain of custody forms in triplicate. "I suggest splitting these between 2 labs," she said, securing the samples in temperature-controlled containers. "Northeastern Regional can handle 2. I have a contact at Meridian Laboratory in Ohio for the others." "Acceptable. How long for results?" "Regional by Monday, Meridian by Wednesday, allowing for shipping time." We signed all documentation, each movement deliberate, each signature witnessed and countersigned. This was proper procedure, dispassionate, thorough, replicable. Nothing that could be dismissed as a family squabble or an old man's paranoia. "The original bottles?" she asked. "I'll secure the suspect bottle in my safe deposit box. Control stays at home for reference." By 12:15, I was at First National, requesting access to my box. The attendant led me to the vault, then left me in the private viewing room. I photographed the sealed evidence bag containing Mark's bottle, then placed it in the metal box alongside another sealed envelope containing copies of all documentation thus far. The lock engaged with a satisfying click. Evidence secured beyond tampering. My last stop was Dr. Winter's office at 2:40 p.m. I had called ahead requesting an urgent appointment, citing potential medication interaction concern. "I need to establish a baseline," I explained, seated in his examination room. "Document that, as of today, I have not ingested any benzodiazepines or similar substances." Dr. Winters raised an eyebrow, but asked no unnecessary questions. He ordered blood work, performed a neurological assessment, and made detailed notes. "I'll put this in your chart," he said, handing me a signed statement. "Blood results tomorrow, but no signs of sedative effects observed today. Please add a note that any future presentation showing unexpected sedation should be treated as suspicious." He nodded, making the addition. Another guardrail in place. By 4:30 p.m., I was home, filing my day's documentation. Each folder contained identical records: photographs, statements, chain of custody forms, receipts, appointment confirmations. One set for my home safe, one for my office lockbox, one for Claire, to be delivered tomorrow. The system was in motion now. Methodical, documented, witnessed. No emotional confrontations, no accusations without evidence. Just a clean process that would produce irrefutable results. This was how my bridges stayed standing for decades, while others crumbled in storms. This was how I would handle whatever Mark had done. Facts line up like soldiers when you need them to. And when Monday came, those soldiers would be ready to march. As I filed the last of my documentation that evening, my mind drifted back to April, the first clear sign that something had shifted in Mark. I smoothed the folder closed, applying a dated seal across the flap, and let myself remember. The diner off Route 9 smelled of burnt coffee and bacon grease. Mark had suggested meeting there rather than my home. More neutral territory, he'd called it. I should have recognized that phrasing for what it was, a negotiation tactic. "Dad, I've been thinking about your estate planning," he'd said, halfway through his Denver omelet. No preamble, no easing into the topic. "You know how messy probate can get. I think it makes sense to add me to your accounts, just in case." I'd paused, coffee cup midway to my lips. In case of what, exactly? In case something happens. You're 73, Dad, living alone. What if you fall? What if you get confused? A deliberate fork stab into his eggs. I'm just trying to make things easier. I remember setting down my cup, perfectly centered on the saucer. I have a comprehensive estate plan, Mark. Powers of attorney, healthcare directives, will, trust. Claire has copies. His face had tightened at the mention of my sister. Claire lives 3 states away. Geography doesn't impact legal authority. Now, in my study, I pulled out a fresh notepad and began a timeline of events. April 15th. First request for account access. I marked it with a red dot. Back in the diner, Mark had shifted tactics. I've been setting up a college fund for Liam. Symbolic, really. I thought you might want to contribute. Show him how we plan for the future as a family. I already have a 529 plan for Liam, I'd replied. Established when he was born. The flash in Mark's eyes, surprise, then calculation. You never mentioned that. You never asked. It's in my trust documents, managed by the corporate trustee. Mark had pushed his plate away, appetite suddenly gone. Corporate trustee, not family, nice. I add to my timeline, April 22nd, missed mortgage payment, according to Liam. April 29th, new Breitling watch. May 17th, golf club membership renewal despite claimed cash flow issues. Red dots, connected with a straight line, the geometry of a pattern emerging. In the diner, Mark had tried once more. Dad, I'm trying to spare you paperwork and decisions. Just add me to your main accounts. I'll handle the transfers, the bills, everything. You worked hard all your life. Time to relax. I find paperwork relaxing, I had told him. Structure, documentation, clarity. Jesus, Dad, not everything needs to be engineered. On the contrary, good engineering prevents collapse. He'd signaled for the check then, ending our breakfast with a tight smile. Think about it. Probate is hell. Family should help family. I had paid the bill, adding a precise 20% tip. Love is blind, Mark. Paper is not. Now, sitting at my desk, I connected more data points. June 3rd. Mark's business partner leaves suddenly. July 12th. Mark asks Liam about my daily schedule. August 20th. References a side deal that smelled like gasoline, as Claire put it. September 8th. Second attempt to gain account access, citing simplification. The line formed was not jagged or unclear. It was straight as a ruler's edge, pointing directly to desperation. I closed my timeline, sealed it in another document sleeve. Motive was important, but only as context. Evidence would determine action. The labs would tell me what Mark had done. Then I would decide what I would do. Methodical, sequential, logical. The only way to solve problems without creating new ones. By Friday morning, I had a clear blueprint in mind. A system of guardrails designed to absorb impact before catastrophic failure. I'd made 2 appointments, 10:20 a.m. with Ms. Alvarez at her law office and 2:30 p.m. with Mr. Chen at First National's Trust Department. In engineering terms, I was installing redundant safety systems. Ms. Alvarez's office occupied the second floor of a red brick building downtown, a space of leather-bound books and precisely aligned desk implements. She'd handled my estate planning for 15 years, approaching legal protections with the same methodical care I applied to load-bearing calculations. This is comprehensive, she noted, reviewing my list of required updates. No questions about why, just what and how. Another reason we worked well together. I need to execute a revised living trust today, I explained, with staggered distributions for Liam at 25, 30, and 35. Corporate trustee only, not individual. Specific exclusion of Mark Wallace as trustee, executor, or agent under any circumstance. She nodded, making annotations with a silver fountain pen. The corporate trustee requires a minimum of 5 business days to accept appointment. I'll expedite. Acceptable. Will revisions to align with trust changes? Yes. And updated TOD designations on all brokerage accounts by end of day. We worked for 2 hours, methodical and thorough. Documents printed, reviewed, signed, notarized. Durable powers of attorney, financial and medical, naming Claire as primary agent, neighbor Ellie Winters as secondary. Mark explicitly excluded. The Healthcare Directive edition is unusual, Ms. Alvarez noted, reading my handwritten provision. Any administration of sedatives or benzodiazepines without clear medical indication should be treated as presumptive foul play and reported to authorities. Necessary specificity, I replied. Will you file a copy with my primary care provider? Yes, and the hospital system. When we finished, Ms. Alvarez handed me a sealed envelope containing executed originals. Paper before people, she said. Her usual closing remark? Paper beats promises, I replied, placing the envelope in my document case. At 12:15, I called Claire from my car, parked in a quiet corner of the municipal lot. Eddie, everything all right? My sister, 3 years younger, still sharp as the day she'd left for medical school. Implementing precautions, I explained, then summarized the situation in precise terms. The bottle, Liam's text, testing underway, legal updates completed. Claire's response was exactly what I needed. No gasps, no theatrics, just methodical questions about evidence preservation and Liam's safety. I've booked a flight for Monday, she said. Should have lab results by then? Regional lab, yes. Out-of-state confirmation by Wednesday. Good. I'll stay at the Marriott, not your house. Better optics if this escalates. Always thinking ahead, my sister. Have you spoken to Ellie? That's my next step. She's agreed to serve as secondary agent and witness. After lunch, I completed the financial guardrails at First National with Mr. Chen. Account restrictions, new signature requirements, confirmation of beneficiary changes. By 3:45 p.m., I was walking the 3 blocks to Ellie's house, documentation secured in my leather case. Ellie Winters had been my neighbor for 22 years, retired high school principal, chess club organizer, no tolerance for dramatics, another person who valued systems over emotions. So, Mark tried to drug you, she summarized after I explained, her knitting needles never pausing their rhythmic motion. And you need witnesses for whatever comes next. Correct. I've named you as secondary agent. Claire arrives Monday. What do you need from me now? Direct, practical. Exactly why I'd chosen her. Presence at the community center on Thursday. 2 p.m. chess club day. The confrontation, she nodded. Public space, witnesses, daylight. Precisely. I'll be there. 3 tables away. Close enough to observe. Far enough for plausible separation. I outlined the remaining steps in my procedure, and she listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on a pad beside her chair. When I finished, she set her knitting aside. You're creating a stable system, not a dramatic moment, she observed. Drama destabilizes. Systems protect. As I walked home, my phone pinged with a calendar reminder, labs due Monday. The blueprint was complete, supports in place, load-bearing calculations verified. No matter what pressure Mark applied, the structure would hold. We were entering the testing phase. All good engineering requires testing before certification. The net was in place. Now we would see what it would catch. Monday morning arrived with clinical precision. I sat at my kitchen table, notebook open, cell phone centered on a clean white page. The call from Ms. Patel came at 9:07 a.m., exactly when scheduled. Regional lab results are complete, she said without preamble. I have the report. Please, summarize. My pen hovered above the paper, ready to document. Sample A1 from the gift bottle tested positive for a benzodiazepine class compound. Sample A2, drawn from a different section of the same bottle, shows identical results. Concentration approximately 3.2 milligrams per standard pour. I noted this verbatim, my handwriting maintaining its steady rhythm despite the confirmation of what I'd suspected. And the control samples? C1 and C2 both negative. No detectable presence of any substance beyond standard components. Has the out-of-state lab received their samples? Delivered this morning. Results expected Wednesday by noon. Thank you. Please email the complete report and mail a certified hard copy. After ending the call, I logged the exact time and conversation summary. My printer hummed to life moments later as Ms. Patel's email arrived with the attached lab report, 12 pages of chemical analysis, methodologies, chain of custody verification, and conclusions. I printed 3 copies, one for my home documentation, one for the safe deposit box, one for Claire, arriving at 3:15 p.m. There is a certain clarity that comes with confirmation. What had been a suspicion, a hypothesis requiring testing, was now a documented fact. Mark had introduced a controlled substance into my birthday gift. The lines were no longer dotted but solid, forming the beginnings of an inescapable geometric proof. At 11:30, I visited the bank, adding the regional lab results to the evidence secured in my safe deposit box. The original bottle remained undisturbed in its sealed bag, amber liquid now transformed from potential threat to documented evidence. Claire arrived precisely on schedule. We met at her hotel, where I provided her copy of all documentation thus far. "Clean work, Eddie," she said, reviewing the lab report. "What's your next step?" Out-of-state confirmation Wednesday. Confrontation Thursday at the community center. Public space. Smart. She closed the folder. "Have you spoken with Liam?" Brief text updates only, maintaining normal patterns until evidence is complete. Tuesday passed in ordered preparation. I finalized the single-page agreement that would form the core of Thursday's conversation with Mark. 6 clauses, unambiguous language, clear consequences, a blueprint for containment. Wednesday's call from Ms. Patel came at 11:42 a.m. Meridian Laboratory confirms benzodiazepine presence, she reported. They've specifically identified alprazolam, concentration consistent with regional's findings. Alprazolam. I wrote the word in my notebook. Common trade names? Xanax is the most recognized. Their analysis suggests a pharmaceutical-grade source, not street manufacture. I thanked her and requested the detailed report. Within an hour, I had 3 more printed copies, filed alongside the previous documentation. The evidence now formed perfect geometry, straight lines, right angles, a structure without curves or ambiguity. Enough alprazolam to make an older man sleepy, to slow a swallow, to potentially, as Mark had whispered, choke on it. At 2:30 p.m., I called Ellie. "Labs confirmed," I told her. "Both sources." "What time tomorrow?" 2 p.m., Community Center. Chess Club Day. "Blood drive too," she added. "Extra witnesses. I'll be at the registration table first, then move to the chess area when you arrive." Mark has agreed to meet. He doesn't know the purpose. "He'll bring theatrics," she predicted. "Be prepared." Theatrics fail against documentation. After our call, I prepared my materials for tomorrow. Lab reports, the agreement, my notebook, and 2 bottles. The control Glenfiddich from the store and a second decoy. Props would be important, especially with Mark. I visualized the community center layout, calculating sight lines, witness positions, exit routes, everything measured, nothing left to chance. The final phase would happen in daylight, with witnesses, not as a confrontation-seeking drama, but as the presentation of irrefutable proof. Daylight is a boundary with witnesses, not a show. Thursday would complete the geometric proof. All angles measured, all lines connected. Thursday, 2:30 p.m. The community center hummed with regulated activity. Chess players hunched over boards in the west corner. Blood drive volunteers efficiently processing donors along the east wall. Clipboards, intake forms, the rhythmic click of chess pieces. A perfect environment of public documentation and routine. I arrived at 1:45, selected a square table with clear sight lines to both exit doors, and arranged my materials with geometric precision. Lab reports in a manila folder to the left. Agreement centered, control bottle and decoy positioned at equal distances to the right. My notebook lay open, pen aligned perpendicular to its spiral binding. Ellie stood by the blood drive registration table, a clipboard in hand, occasionally glancing in my direction, close enough to witness, far enough to appear unconnected. Mark arrived at 2:07 p.m., 7 minutes late. His standard minor assertion of control. He carried a small gift bag and wore the confident smile of a man who believed he was still directing the scene. "Dad," he said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Twice in 1 week. To what do I owe the pleasure?" He placed the gift bag on the table. "Thought you might want to try something different, since you haven't mentioned enjoying the Glenfiddich." "I haven't opened it," I replied, my voice calibrated to normal conversational volume. "I won't be opening this one either." His smile flickered but held. "Not to your taste? I can exchange it." "No need. We're going to discuss what you put in the first one." A chess timer clicked nearby. A volunteer called Next Donor. The community center's fluorescent lights cast no shadows. Everything illuminated, nothing hidden. Mark's eyes darted to the 2 bottles on the table, then back to me. "What's this about, Dad?" I opened the manila folder, removed the top page, Regional Lab's summary findings, and placed it before him. "Benzodiazepine, specifically alprazolam, 3.2 milligrams per standard pour, confirmed by 2 independent laboratories." His face performed a complex calculation. Surprise, denial, recalculation, the beginning of a deflection. "I don't know what." "We also have testimony," I continued, maintaining the same even tone. "Eyewitness account of you adding liquid from a vial to the bottle before resealing it. Documented, signed, and dated." The chess timer clicked again. A rook clattered against a board 3 tables away. Mark's eyes narrowed. "Liam," he said flatly. "He's 16, Dad. Teenagers make things up. You know how dramatic they can be." Which is why I relied on evidence. Not testimony alone. I gestured to the lab reports. Chemical analysis doesn't lie. Chain of custody was maintained throughout, all properly documented. "This is ridiculous." His voice rose slightly, then recalibrated as he remembered our public setting. "You're turning a misunderstanding into some kind of—" "There is no misunderstanding." I tapped the report. "You introduced a controlled substance into alcohol intended for my consumption, after commenting that I shouldn't choke on it. The sedative effect would have compromised my swallowing reflex, created a significant risk. Dad, you're making this dramatic." "No, Mark, I'm making it boring. Boring is safe." I slid the single-page agreement across the table. "These are the terms." He stared at the document without touching it. 6 clauses, I explained. "Written acknowledgement of what you did. Mandatory evaluation and treatment for substance abuse and financial stress, with documented proof of completion. 90 days of supervised contact with me and with Liam, with counselor approval required to reduce supervision. Acceptance of my current estate planning arrangements without challenge. No unsupervised access to my home, vehicle, or financial information. Violation of any term ends contact pending a new written agreement." A nurse called, "Next," from the blood drive station. Ellie adjusted a poster on the wall, establishing a better viewing angle. Mark leaned back, attempting a casual posture that his rigid shoulders betrayed. "And if I don't sign your little contract? Then I take the complete evidence package to the police, and to family court today. The labs have already preserved samples for law enforcement purposes. His jaw tightened. You'd do that? To your own son? You'd drug your own father? I countered, voice remaining level. This isn't about what I'd do, Mark. It's about what you've already done. The chess players applauded politely as someone achieved checkmate. Mark glanced around the room, his eyes lingering on the exit sign before returning to the agreement. This is insane. You can't possibly think. I don't think. I know. I placed my pen on top of the agreement. Sign or walk. Those are the options. One leads to treatment and eventual reconciliation. The other to legal consequences. I could challenge this, get my own tests, claim contamination. You could. Chain of custody is documented, dual lab verification, witness testimony. Your choice. The community center clock ticked to 2:23 p.m. A chess piece, a knight, fell to the floor nearby, the plastic making a hollow sound against the linoleum. Mark reached for the agreement, eyes scanning the clauses. His expression shifted through calculations. Prison time, public shame, professional consequences against the humiliation of compliance, the loss of control. You've always been this way, he said quietly. Everything a system. Everything documented. No room for trust? Trust is earned through choices, not claimed through relation. He picked up the pen, his eyes moving to a point over my shoulder. His jaw worked silently, the muscles tightening and releasing. The pen tip hovered, then lowered to the signature line. The pen moved across the page, not with the flourish Mark typically used to sign credit card receipts, but with a tight, controlled yielding. Not surrender, but calculation. His signature appeared, angular and compressed, a graph of anger transitioning to pragmatism, perhaps even to a flicker of relief. He set the pen down at precisely 2:27 p.m. Witnessed signatures, I said, making a small gesture toward Ellie, who approached with the timing of someone who had observed but not obviously monitored our interaction. Edward, she acknowledged with a neighborly nod. And Mark, isn't it? We met at the holiday potluck last year. Mark's eyes narrowed slightly, recognizing the deliberate casualness of her approach, but he nodded. Ms. Winters. Would you mind? I asked, sliding the agreement toward her. Ms. Alvarez recommended 2 witness signatures. Ellie took the pen, read the document thoroughly, no performance of skimming, then signed below Mark's name, adding the date and time with practiced precision. The rhythm of her movements matched the steady click of the chess timers nearby. I signed last, completing the document's transformation from proposal to contract. The community center printer hummed as I made a copy, which I handed to Mark without ceremony. Keep this, I said. The terms begin immediately. He folded the paper with deliberate creases, tucking it into his jacket pocket. His eyes traveled to the 2 bottles still positioned on the table. Take neither, I instructed. The original remains in evidence. This one is a control sample. And this? He nudged the gift bag he'd brought. Leave it. The muscles in his jaw worked silently. Then, with a calculated nod, he stood. You'll receive documentation of the first counseling appointment by Monday. Good. He turned to leave, then paused. You know this doesn't fix anything, right? This whole procedure of yours. It doesn't change what's broken. It creates boundaries. Boundaries allow for repair. Always the engineer, he said, but the expected bitterness in his voice had flattened to something like resignation. We're not here to test your heart, Mark. We're here to test your choices. After he left, Ellie collected the gift bag. I'll dispose of this properly, she said quietly. I nodded, gathering my documentation with the same care I'd used to arrange it. The chess players continued their games. A volunteer called for the next blood donor. The community center absorbed our private reconfiguration back into its steady rhythm of ordinary activity. Safety in boring, structure in routine, the invisible strength of systems working as designed. In the weeks that followed, I observed the new system taking shape, not with the satisfaction of victory, but with the steady reassurance of a well-executed blueprint functioning as designed. The revised trust was executed and funded by the following Tuesday. Confirmation emails arrived from my financial institutions verifying beneficiary designations. Ms. Alvarez's office sent documentation that all healthcare directives had been properly filed with the appropriate medical providers. Claire stayed for 8 days, long enough to establish procedural stability, not so long as to create dependency. She and Ellie developed a rotation schedule for the first month of supervised visits between Mark and Liam, each documented in a shared log with timestamps, locations, and behavioral observations. 3 days after the community center meeting, I sent Liam a text. "You did right. Truth is safe here." His response came 4 minutes later. "Thanks, Grandpa." No emotional flourishes, no dramatic declarations, just acknowledgement of a system that protected those who maintained its integrity. Mark complied with mechanical precision. On Monday, as promised, he texted a photo of a counselor's business card with an intake appointment date circled in blue ink. By week 3, he had submitted documentation of financial counseling sessions and substance abuse evaluation. His early attempts at minimization, "It was just a stupid impulse," gradually gave way to grudging engagement with the process. "He's calculating," Claire observed during our weekly call, "following the letter of the agreement while looking for loopholes." "Calculation is the beginning of recognition," I replied. "Systems work regardless of emotional buy-in." On a Tuesday afternoon in the 4th week, Liam came to my house after school. I taught him chess while Ellie knitted in the adjacent armchair. Supervision established without theatrical emphasis. When he asked about his father's progress, I answered with measured precision. "The system is designed for rehabilitation, not punishment," I explained, moving my knight. "Boundaries create safety. Safety allows for eventual trust." "Like guardrails on a bridge," he said, studying the board. "Precisely. This is how families should function, not as emotional firestorms that burn through boundaries, but as well-designed systems that maintain stability even when components attempt to fail. Daylight, documentation, witnesses, consequences aligned with choices. These are the structural supports that prevent collapse." Mark continued his compliance. Supervised visits extended gradually from 30 minutes to 2 hours. He attended each required session, submitted each verification form exactly on schedule. Not with enthusiasm, but with the recognition that systems outlast resistance. Protecting the truth-teller had been my first priority throughout. Without Liam's courage to report what he saw, the entire structure could have failed. Truth needs safeguards, verification, documentation, witnesses, but most importantly, it needs to know that honesty will not be punished. I chose the boring road of procedure over the dramatic cliff of confrontation. Drama destabilizes, process protects. It's a lesson I've applied to every bridge I've designed, every structural problem I've solved, and now to the fracture in my family. If this approach resonates with you, this preference for stability over spectacle, for boundaries over battles, leave a word in response. Perhaps daylight, or paper, or simply the time as you read this. A quiet signal, engineer to engineer, that we understand the value of problems solved before they break. We solve problems before they break.